Welcome in to the Blitz podcast. I am your host, Mr. Kane Schwartz, and I'm joined by Tyler North to bring you Week 11's power rankings. Not gonna lie, I've been slacking as far as the podcast goes these past couple weeks. I'm absolutely getting my ass kicked by school right now. We're coming up on Thanksgiving break, so all the teachers insist to get plenty of drives in on you right before you leave for break. So that's what I've been going through for the last 2 weeks. So there haven't been any Gauge 8s. I've been less available for the podcast, but I want to so badly do these power rankings, man. So I'm glad I was able to do this. Glad I'm able to make it. How we feeling today, man?
Feeling good. Before we do go ahead and get started with everything, as much as I want to talk about the Minnesota Vikings and what they did this week, I got one thing I got to do real quick.
Pray on the warpath, fight for all DC.
I had to get that in there. Had to get that in there for you. I mean, let's be honest, I think our two teams had the two biggest wins in the NFL this week. I don't think there's
possibly
maybe
all season.
Maybe the Packers against the Cowboys, but in my opinion, both of our teams went into hostile environments against the two highest Super Bowl odds right now and got wins this week. So it was an awesome week, and I can't wait to dive into it a little bit more. But yeah, man, doing good. Going to be moving back to Maryland here in about a month, which is pretty wild to think about. But yeah, a lot of moving parts in my life. Obviously, I don't have the school part that I have to worry about, but a lot of personal things, personal advancements as well. So yeah, things are going good. I was battling a cold all last week. It's out of my system. I've still got a little bit of a cough, a little bit of leftover, but other than that, I feel great. So yeah, I'm ready to dive into these power rankings.
Fuck yeah, me too. Me as well. It's nice to get a fucking break from all the shit. I literally just took an exam, or most of an exam, until my battery on my computer died. So that'll give you a perspective of where I'm at with school right now. So let's fucking talk about some football. Let's escape from that shit. Let's have some fun for about an hour. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Okay, so to recap for our audio listeners, and if you want to tag along, you can look at the Instagram rankings from last week. But the power rankings after week 9 that we put together headed into week 10 goes as follows. We have in tier 1 the Eagles, Chiefs, Bills, Vikings, 49ers, Ravens, Cowboys, Dolphins. Tier 2 we had Seahawks, Bengals, Jets, Titans, Chargers, Giants, Browns, and Pats. Then in the third tier, we had Falcons, Commanders, Bears, Bucks, Broncos, Cardinals, Rams, and Saints. And then to round out at tier 4, we had the Packers, Jags, Raiders, Lions, Steelers, Texans, Colts, and Panthers. So let's make our first moves on this tier 1. I don't think that the Eagles are number 1 anymore. Personally, I've got the Chiefs at 1. Coming off of a win this week.
So do I.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, good start.
I don't know if there's much debate there. There's going to be a point in time when we aren't going to appreciate everything that Patrick Mahomes has been doing. In my opinion, they're on pace. Not in my opinion. It is where it needs to be. They are on pace right now to host their fifth straight NFC championship game. AFC championship game. That is absolutely ridiculous. That they're right there, and he's the MVP. Every single week, it's like, okay, we got Patrick Mahomes, and who else is second? Who else do we want to put in competition with Patrick Mahomes? But it's always Patrick Mahomes at the top. You want to hear something even crazier? If they win on Sunday, they clinch the division.
My God.
We're in week 11, and they can clinch the division. Patrick Mahomes has more touchdown passes than Rodgers and Brady combined this year. It is absolutely insane what they're doing. You want to know something else crazy about the Chiefs?
Post Tyreek Hill too. I was so hating on the Chiefs without Tyreek, and that offense doesn't look any different, man.
Yep, it doesn't. And the other thing with them as well, they're 27th in turnover differential. They have a -4 turnover differential on the season, and they're still putting up these crazy amount of points and still getting win after win after win each and every week. What they're doing is absolutely incredible. You have probably best offensive-minded coach, arguably in NFL history, with Andy Reid, and then you've got what might go down as the greatest quarterback of all time too. And they're not missing a beat. I know Juju had a pretty devastating hit in that game against the Jags, but dude, Kansas City's won, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, they added Kadarius Toney, who just scored his first NFL touchdown, and I don't know if you saw it, but the limping into the end zone, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
Oh yeah,
the narrative following.
But it's just it's crazy. He goes from the Giants, where it's like, will he play? Maybe he will play. When he plays, is he that effective? And then he goes to the Chiefs, and he's like, okay, I'll just score a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did. There were some next gen stats I was talking about. He was 21 yards open. Like there was 21 yards between him and the nearest defender on that, which is the most open, the widest open catch in the NFL this season.
Yeah, I mean, dude's a freak. Dude's a freak route runner. He's going to get himself open. We saw that in the game that he had last year against the Cowboys. And they never really showed it again. But now in KC, he's not banged up, or he's not following the narrative that was created by the Giants that he was banged up. So, yeah, I'm with the Chiefs at 1. So now the real
quick, last thing. I just want to jerk Mahomes off a little bit more. He is leading. So he's leading the league in touchdowns and yards. 1 in every 6 games he's played in 72 regular season games, so 12 out of the 72, he's had 304 touchdowns. He has thrown for 300 yards in 50% of his regular season games.
That's insane.
Just insane numbers coming from him.
That's a Hall of Famer if he retires today, obviously.
And one last thing, if the Chiefs are going to be building up these leads in some of these games, did we see Isaiah Pacheco emerge as the bell cow back? I think CEH played 6% of snaps this week. Pacheco had 82 yards on the ground. I think Pacheco might have just taken over this RB1 duties.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's something that's been inevitable. I mean, I've stashed Pacheco in several leagues. I did dump off of him. I couldn't afford to wait any longer in some leagues, but in the leagues that I did hold on to him.
Same did I.
Yeah, in the leagues that I did hold on to him. I believe Fantasy Ballers, our 12 team, I still have a hold of him. So if you manage to hold on to Pacheco for that long, props to you. But if he's on your waiver wire, this is somebody that they talk about in the same light as a Tyreek Hill kind of athlete. Like, just a purebred fucking, he runs so angry. He runs I think it's a 4.3.
He's very physical.
Yeah, and I think he runs like a 4.3-4.4 as a running back, which is fucking fantastic. Like, I love it. Dude, a rookie out of Rutgers.
I know you don't have him in our 10-man league because you're trying to trade me for him. So I know that is for certain. But yeah, if he's still out there, I mean, go get him. But I don't imagine maybe an 8-man league he might be available, but 10 and 12 teams he should be gobbled up by now.
Yeah, but I'm with him being the bell cow back for the Chiefs going forward. All right, let's move on from the Chiefs at 1 talk, and now the conversation gets really interesting. Personally, I still have the Eagles at 2.
I do as well. My thing, I don't think it's too much of a concern with the Eagles. The only thing I'm going to say, number 1, time of possession. It was 2-1, 40-20 with time of possession in that game against Washington. It shows me that the Eagles aren't the type of team like the Chiefs or like the Bills or like the Dolphins that are going to be able to, if they're down, just pass happy and just come back and score right away. That's the one thing that I will take from this that I would be a little bit concerned about. Also, losing Jordan Davis might be bigger than we ever thought because the run defense did not look good, and that middle of that defensive line is a big hole right now for the Eagles. So those are the 2 things that I would really take away. But you lose the turnover differential. You can say 4-2, but the last one was a bullshit fumble at the end that Washington ended up scoring. Still lost it 3-2. And I love what Jason Kelce said. If you're going to sit there and blame the refs, it's just a loser mentality. There were so many opportunities for the Eagles to come back in that game and to win that game that you can't sit there and be like, oh, well, the missed face mask is what decided this game. Or there was
you can trace every
you
can trace all those BS calls back to BS calls on the Commanders as well. Like, it goes completely different way.
Offensive pass interference.
Yeah.
Offensive pass interference on Jahan Dotson. The no call on the defensive pass interference. That was clear as day. Each team, it goes back and forth. And if you want to sit there and harp on what the ref was doing, you're going to be in a very, very peculiar situation come playoffs. I'll say that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of debate whether or not that face mask call should be reviewable. Obviously, it should. I mean, they should definitely implement that at some point. But right now, it's not. Like, you can't do shit about it. You can't go back and reverse a face mask call. And like I said, the calls equal out if you look at over the course of the game. And actually, as a Commander fan, I have a better perspective of knowing the calls that went against me. And you were betting on them, so you knew the perspective as well, man. So the Eagles fans want to complain about the fucking calls, but that's not the truth.
I do want to take my kudos for that, for picking Washington. And every Eagles fan that's listening is going to be like, yeah, well, you pick against the Eagles every week. Yeah, well, it finally worked out. So I'm gonna take my high road right now. I'm gonna salivate in it. I'm gonna keep the receipts of everybody saying, "What are you doing picking against the Eagles?" That's why I knew it was gonna happen sooner or later, and it happened on Monday night against a division opponent.
Yeah, you're so quick to respond back to J Mike in the comments.
Had to.
Yeah,
Had to. I couldn't let that go unresponded to. I guess you can say. I had to get my response into him because I know he talks shit on me every week, so I gotta talk some shit back when it does eventually go my way.
Fuck yeah, I agree. Last thing that I'll say on the Eagles Commanders game. I think people want to look at this and talk about how bad the Eagles might be now. I think that the Commanders are just getting better and better every single week. Like they went into the link and they played really good football and they won the football game. Like, it's not about how bad the Eagles are. It's about how good the 5-5 potential playoff Commanders team is.
I don't know if it's that they're that good or their confidence with Heineke is what I think is a big thing, because I feel like this team rallies around him, whereas I don't know if he really had that with Carson Wentz. And I feel like, they were like, this is a guy that took us to the playoffs last year, and then Wentz comes in and it's like, okay, well, that guy just took us to the playoffs, and you're just being like, oh, we signed this guy or traded for this guy, so we're going to automatically institute him as the starter. And I don't think the team was buying behind it. And now you see, what is he, 3-1 in the 4 games that he started? I mean, Heineke, it's crazy to think about, but he looks like he's the truth. And we'll hop into Washington a little bit later, but by God, they cannot lose to the Texans this week. That's the game. After beating the Eagles like they did, you can't come back next week and lose to the Texans. You got to win that game.
And we'll talk about it later, but that's something that Ron was talking about, because we have a lot of young players on our team, and how they reacted after the dub against the Eagles. Like, Ron came out on Monday, it was like, or on Tuesday, it was like, I didn't say anything, but I was like, I don't want to see us celebrating like that, like after a midseason dub. So, I mean, we did beat the undefeated fucking Eagles, but, I would say probably try not to celebrate that way, especially going into the Texans where we get our ass kicked if we don't go ready to fly. But
I agree with that.
All right, man. Well, Eagles at 2, Chiefs at 1, and then I do have your Vikings at 3. I'm surprised you didn't have them at 2 or 1, man.
I can't have them at 2 because they lost to the Eagles, and what the Chiefs are doing. Like, if the Vikings were to play the Chiefs are going to win. I'll put it blank like that. I mean, there's nothing much to say about that. But what I will say is this team is resilient, man. Every single week, everybody wants to talk about, well, the Vikings won close. Well, the Vikings won close. Well, the Vikings won close. When's it going to stop? I mean, if you can sit there and say that, but you can also sit there and say this is a mark of a good team. Because if you're able to win these games that are tightly contested, close games, when you get into these close games in the playoffs, if you've got a team that's been there, done that, the confidence is going to ooze. You're going to be like, okay, we're down 10 points in the fourth quarter. We've done this before. We've done it back-to-back weeks. I mean, we were down 17 to the Bills, came back and won. We were down 10, to your Commanders and won that game. Every single week, they seem to impress me with how they're winning games. And I don't know if I'm going to have a heartbeat by the end of the year because of how this has been. But, you look at first of all, Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in football.
Oh, my God.
Putting it out there.
That game.
Go ahead, argue with me if you want.
That game, like that was probably the best highlight reel game put together by a wide receiver in my lifetime.
Well, and obviously capped off by the greatest catch that I think I've ever seen. I mean, people can talk about the OBJ catch, and I get it. It was a cleaner catch, but like 4th and 18, game on the line. Like OBJ's catch was a touchdown to put the Giants up 7-3 in the second quarter that they ended up going on and losing the game. what he did, not only with that catch, but with all the other catches, like 9 out of the 10 catches, like 9 out of his catches, 9 out of his 10 catches, I think something like that, were under 50% catch rate, which means the dude just did. He was like, okay, Kirk, throw it up and I'll go get it. I will make the catch. I will do what I have to do to will this team to a victory. But I've never gone from such a low to such a high within one play and within seconds. When Minnesota got stopped on the goal line on 4th and goal with the Cousins sneak, and then you turn around, Allen fumbles, you recover it. It was just, I can't even put it into words. Like, it was absolutely incredible to watch what that team did on Sunday. Game of the year, absolutely. Then obviously the Bills go down, kick the field goal. Then we go to overtime. The Vikings get it on the 2-yard line, then go backwards, kick a field goal. And I'm like, okay, the Bills are going to score a touchdown and win. And then obviously Patrick Peterson gets his second interception of the game. The one thing I will make note, because everybody wants to talk about, the Bills are still the favorite. Do we really worry about every single game the Bills have lost, which to the Dolphins, to the Jets, and to the Vikings? It's almost been like the other team's Super Bowl in a sense, where it's been like, holy shit, we beat the Bills. And look how you had to do it to beat that team. Like, you had to have all these little things go certain ways for you to win the game, which, it's the NFL. You take advantage of your opportunities. I'm not concerned all that much about the Bills. There is one thing I'm concerned about, and we can get into the Bills a little bit.
It's 3 losses, dude. Like, I mean, no matter what way, shape, or form you look at it, it's 3 losses. It's you lost to the Chiefs. Okay, or no, you won against the Chiefs, but you lost to the Jets. You lost to
Dolphins,
and then you lost this past week. It's not.
I guess I should revert back to the Vikings, because what's your feel on the Vikings? Because I know that they are 8-1. Everybody wants to talk about it's an inflated 8-1 record. They have a 35-point differential on the season. What's your take on them moving forward? Do you see this team as a Super Bowl contender, or do you see this team as they're going to be a good team that gets in the playoffs, might win a game, maybe 2, but I can't see them getting to the Super Bowl?
No, I mean, it's a lot easier. We've talked about it. It's easier route to the Super Bowl going through the NFC than it is through the AFC. I mean, out of all the teams in the NFC right now, I mean, you've got the NFC East teams, and outside of that, it's the fucking Vikings that are the favorites in the NFC. The Seahawks still in contention, but they just lost to the Bucs this past week. So in comparison to the rest of the field, I love the Vikings. And you mentioned it earlier with Heineke and the confidence that we have. Like, I don't know if it's the Commanders getting better. It might just be the confidence that we have in Heineke. Bro, like, same shit applies with Kirk Cousins and the Vikings right now. Like, never, it used to be fucking Kirk Cousins, like, he's the worst. Like, J. Jeff was screaming, and Adam Thielen was yelling at him on the sidelines. He was a meme and everything. And now he goes to getting everybody's chain on the plane home and being the mascot for the entire team, which is fucking awesome. But yeah, I mean, you never saw Kirk Cousins getting, like, 50 pounds of jewelry around his neck after winning games of 4. This is the confidence that is oozing from this Minnesota Vikings team is that. And we saw with a team like the Bengals last year. All it takes really is some confidence, dude. Like, if you have that mentality.
And Kevin, I was going to say the new coach. I mean, Kevin O'Connell has brought something to this team where they're able to win these close games, and I think it's a confidence from him as well. I will say the Vikings have been extremely fortunate and lucky on the injury side. They have had almost no injuries. I know Cam Dancer has been put on IR. Outside of him, you've got some older guys on the defense like Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, Zadarius Smith. None of us, taking on injuries, knock on wood, right now. And then you've got some older guys on the offense too that haven't withstood any injuries. So those type of things are what can carry you to a Super Bowl run, is staying healthy. You just got to hope it stands up for the rest of the season. Next 4 games for the Vikings, though: Cowboys at home, Patriots at home, Jets at home, and then I believe the Giants at home. So they're all at home, but they are against some stiff competition. So if the Vikings can go even 2-2 in those games, I'll feel fine. If they go 3-1, yeah, we're gonna definitely be talking about them as a Super Bowl contender.
Fuck yeah, man. And at number 3 in our power rankings this week. But let's go further down the list. And, dude, I think I'm plopping the Dolphins ahead of the Bills. Because I'm looking...
they beat them.
Yep.
They beat them.
Mm-hmm. And I'm looking for a team to surpass the Bills here. And they beat them. And I mean, it was one of the weirdest football games of all time. They didn't dominate time of possession. The turnover battle was weird. But they did beat the Bills, and they smacked the dog shit out of the Browns this week, one of our tier 2 teams. I do like the Dolphins at 5 or 4.
Yeah, I do as well. I think that I'm okay to put them up there. I'm not putting Tua in the conversation of MVP like a lot of people are with Mahomes. Unfortunately for Tua, he missed a couple games, and what Mahomes is doing is just it's absolutely insane. The other thing I do want to say, Tyreek Hill is number 1 in yards drawn from pass interference. Jalen Waddle is number 5. So they definitely benefit from some of that. Also, Tyreek Hill was number 1 last year in that same category.
Yeah.
You know who's number 2?
That's kind of just their player build, though. Like getting downfield like super fucking fast, and nobody being able to like catch them and getting a PI call.
Or Tua underthrowing a deep ball. I mean, you know, that's definitely there as well. But I guess that only happens in practice, so we can't really talk about that as much. Number 2 on that list, and he was number 2 last year, is Courtland Sutton, which I found to be like pretty remarkable that Courtland Sutton's that high up there.
He's a big body receiver who's also fast, so they try to get the hands on him, I guess. I don't know. No.
I will say you are looking very, very good with your Jeff Wilson over Raheem Mostert call. I think Jeff Wilson has kind of stepped up as the lead back, but at the same time, I mean, they basically are still splitting carries.
No, they're not.
So I think it's going to be a split backfield, which is great for the Dolphins because you keep those guys fresh. But yeah, I mean, what they're doing, defense stepped up a little bit this week as well. But you know, that was a game that they were a 3.5 point or 3-point favorite when the line closed, and they absolutely demolished the Browns. And that was a Browns team that was coming off a big victory 2 weeks ago against the Bengals on Monday Night Football.
A bye.
And we thought, and a bye, and we thought, you know, maybe the Browns are starting to figure some things out. Dolphins said, hold on. We've got other news for you. So I think the Dolphins at 4, I probably got them there as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then that's as far as the buck stops for me. As far as the Bills dropping down, I don't have them going any lower than 5.
Yeah, I probably got them at 5 too. So a couple things that I do want to talk about with the Bills. Number 1, they haven't scored a second half touchdown since week 6. That is very concerning to me. They're also 2-9 in 1-score games since the beginning of 2021. So since the beginning of last year, they're 2-9 in 1-score games. It's pretty bad. Also, who has the most interceptions in the NFL this year?
Well, it has to be. It's probably Josh Allen if you're talking about the Bills.
Well done. Well done, Mr. Schwartz. Josh Allen leads the league in the NFL. He leads the league with most interceptions. He's 3rd with most interceptions and fumbles. Josh Allen, this is the biggest area of concern for me. Josh Allen has 6 turnovers in the red zone. No other quarterback has 5. No other quarterback has 4. That is a very, very key stat because not only are you giving the other team the ball, you're keeping points away from your team, at least 3 points. That is something that he's going to have to take into notice. And, you know, he can't be doing this, especially when it comes down to playoff games. The other thing to keep in mind with that is on the other end of the spectrum, well, how do you get to the red zone? It's Josh Allen. It's everything that he does to get you there. So he's a gunslinger mentality. I'm going to do what I need to do. The one thing I would do if I'm Sean McDermott and the Bills coaching staff is that I'd run the fucking ball a little bit more when you get down to the red zone. Because if you take the ball out of his hands, he can't make those turnovers. And I'm not necessarily saying run the ball with Devin Singletary or James Cook. Run it with Josh Allen too if you want. I know you were a little hesitant maybe this week because of the injury, but I would be definitely looking to run the ball. Those are my biggest areas of a concern with this Bills team. They're also 0-3 this year without Jordan Poyer.
Yeah. So
losing a guy like that on your defense has definitely proved to be very critical for the Bills. But yeah, I think, you know, this is still one of the best teams in football on paper when it comes to the results. Now, they need to go out this week and they need to kick the shit out of the Browns. I know that it's going to be in a blizzard. I know they're calling for 3 to 5 feet of snow, I think, in Buffalo this weekend, which is freaking ridiculous. But this is a game where you need to bounce back. You need to have one of your best games of the year, and you need to take care of business. And if they do, I think we'll all feel a lot better about the Bills. But I still think they're one of the best teams in football. I still think they're going to be probably in the AFC Championship. I as it looks right now, I gotta say it's going to be them and the Chiefs. Maybe the Dolphins, though. I know we have the Dolphins ahead of the Bills right now, and I think that they could make a run. But the one thing I worry about the Dolphins is, can their game translate to colder weather when you go to Kansas City and when you go to Buffalo in those frigid environments when it comes time for playoff football?
Yeah, all really good points. To that, I'll say, like, perfect observation with Josh Allen. I mean, that gunslinging mentality was the reason that he threw that turnover to Pat Pete to end the game. It's a lot easier to throw guys open before you get to the red zone. And Josh Allen, that's something that he prides himself on, just fucking gunning it, throwing a guy open. But when you're limited, once you're getting down to 10 yards to the end zone, 20 yards to the end zone, there's not as much space to throw guys open. And I think he's still trying to do that when he gets down there. And he's throwing those interceptions in crucial points, which is a bummer, man. But, dude, I think they might be in trouble this week. And we'll talk about it more when we do our preview episode a little later this week. But going into the Browns, it's going to be snowing there. You got the run attack with the Cleveland, plus Deshaun Watson possibly coming back this week.
No, he won't be back this week. He's not coming back till week 13. He can't because of the suspension.
I thought he was eligible to come back at week 11.
No, he's week 13, and the thing that everybody has hyped up ever since he was suspended is who's his first game against. It's against the Texans in Houston. That was the big thing that everybody wanted to hype up, is that I was listening to part of my take, and they were saying how that game they're gonna flex it to 1:30 p.m. just so that way it can be in its own little window. It won't happen, obviously it's a joke, but it will be really funny. I can't imagine the boos that might be the highest attendance that the Texans have all year.
Yeah, probably. It'll be awesome to see, especially Houston. Like, the Texans suck, but Houston's a passionate fan base, dude. Like,
yeah.
Well,
and they're gonna be all jazzed up. They're still gonna be living high off of the Astros World Series, so it'll just be like, all right, let's keep celebrating.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think they might be in trouble going into Cleveland, regardless of no Deshaun Watson, because that run attack
in Buffalo.
Snow. Yeah, but that run attack, like, if it's snowing, I mean, it's gonna be a run first game. And we just saw the Browns 2 weeks ago play how they're supposed to play with a dominant run game. So they might be in trouble, but we'll save that for later in the week. All right, so we got Chiefs, Eagles, Vikings, Dolphins, and Bills so far in Tier 1. Following them up, I've got the 49ers not moving.
I almost want to put the Ravens ahead, and I know the Ravens were on a bye. The 49ers just scared me in that game against the Chargers. And I didn't watch a ton of it, but I know they went down 13-3 in that game. They had to claw back. They ended up getting the win 22-16, which they won by 6, and Robbie Gould missed an extra point, and the line was 7. So I know that there are probably some aggravated 49ers -7 bettors out there that were hitting the damn wall when they lost that game, or when they lost the spread. But I would lean 49ers, but I almost want to put the Ravens just because I really like the Ravens. The Ravens have had 8 straight games with at least 150 rushing yards, which hasn't happened since the mid-'80s. You want to also know the only team in the NFL that has led by 10 points or more in every game is the Ravens, which is crazy to think about as well. I do like the 49ers. I think top to bottom, this is probably the most talented team in football. And I'm going to go ahead on my high horse here. At the beginning of the year, when we were doing one of our season preview episodes, I said 2 out of these 3 teams in the NFC are going to play in the NFC Championship. I said the Eagles, the Vikings, and the 49ers. And here we are, and I don't think anything wavers me away from those 3 teams. 2 out of those 3 teams meeting in the NFC Championship. I had Ravens and 49ers as my Super Bowl pick, so that is right there in line as well. But I'll agree with you on the 49ers. It's really close between them and the Ravens, though. And if one team were to slip up, I could see it definitely going the other way.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that they clawed back in that game, but they did ultimately beat the Chargers, So I think, and once they got CMC, this was a top 4 or 5 team for me. So I think that's where I'll probably keep the 49ers, but I've got the Ravens following them up. It's between those 2, obviously.
Also, the emergence or reemergence of Elijah Mitchell this past week. I wonder how that's going to factor into CMC and his touches. I know Debo only had like 7 points again this week. I'm a little bit concerned with him and his usage. And this is what we talked about. There's so many mouths to feed because you've got CMC now. Obviously, Elijah Mitchell we just talked about as well. George Kittle's still there. Brandon Ayuk's there. Jimmy Garoppolo's not going to pass the ball a ton. And those running plays that Debo was getting or those end arounds are now going to McCaffrey. So I do worry about Debo when it comes to his fantasy status. Is he still a wide receiver 2? Probably. But I wouldn't put him in that wide receiver 1 category right now.
Yeah, I would still say he's wide receiver 2 just because of what he did last year, and he's still young. Like, come on. Like, and he just signed a contract. But, I mean, it's definitely concerning. They did line him out of the backfield a couple times in that game, but definitely not as often as they did with CMC. And it's concerning because Debo was supposed to be fully healthy coming back this week and wasn't really involved in the level that we expected. So, a lot of concern. Yeah, I mean, I have Debo in 1 or 2 leagues, and I've definitely got some concern. So,
yeah, I agree.
We'll see how that pans out. But you mentioned Elijah Mitchell, dude. It's probably committee going forward in San Fran. I mean, they have loved Elijah Mitchell ever since they drafted him. Adrian Peterson is a name that they keep throwing out. The 49ers staff keeps throwing out when they want to talk about Elijah Mitchell. So they love him to death. Obviously didn't love him enough because they went out and got CMC. But I don't think that Elijah Mitchell's going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely a guy that if he's available on your waivers, if somebody wasn't stashing him in the IR spot, I would go out and absolutely take a stab on Elijah Mitchell. He's not going to get you, RB1 type numbers, but I could see him being absolutely an RB2 flex option moving forward for sure. I think CMC is still going to be an RB1 because of what he can provide in the passing game. But Elijah Mitchell's still going to get enough work to be in that RB2 flex conversation every single week.
I mean, outside of Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and yeah, that's it. This is probably the best running back committee in the league. Because you want to say Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, they've been terrible this year.
I mean, I want to say Cook and Madison, but I don't think Madison gets the amount of touches. I would also throw, Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert, what they've been doing here recently is another one to look at as well. But yeah, I would say that they're right up there with probably the best of them. Obviously, CMC probably carries it a little bit more. But yeah, that's actually really interesting to think about with the reemergence of Mitchell is where does that tandem rank? And yeah, I'd put him top 3. Yeah, probably top 3.
Yeah, well, who are you putting ahead of him? I mean, I can't really think of 2.
I'd probably still put Chubb and Hunt,
yeah.
And I'd probably, I'm leaning toward Mostert and Wilson. What they've done the past 2 to 3 weeks.
Mostert hasn't been good.
2 weeks.
Mostert hasn't been good.
He's still got a touchdown back-to-back weeks.
He's right up against the goal line. It's not like he's actually getting yardage. I know there's a little bias in that observation.
He had 60 yards this week.
Okay, I'm looking forward to the end of that bet. How long is it?
Yeah,
3 weeks?
Well, you didn't want to do week 1, so you were like, oh, it's the week after he got traded, he's not going to be involved. So it depends on if we want to include that week, because if we do, then next week will be the last week. But if we don't, then we've got next week and the week after, and then I got to eat a jalapeno on camera, I guess.
Yeah, let's stick with the original terms of the bet. Let's do the next 2 weeks.
Right.
See who's got. All right, fair enough.
I mean, you're still up what do you up 7 or 8 at least? Just because I know Mostert had a couple catches.
Yeah, but interesting to see how it plays out. All right, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Who we got fitting into this last spot?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Real quick. Back to that running back ranking. I would throw Zeke and Pollard in there as well.
Okay, I could probably get with that. I mean, I don't know if they're better than CMC and Elijah Mitchell, but as far as
probably not
top 3 running back tandems in the league, for sure. And also, I'll save it for later. Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson might be turning into one of those top RB committees in the league. So
Swift and Jamal Williams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
another one.
With Swift in the ramp up, I think eventually it's going to be all Swift, but who fucking knows at this point?
Yeah.
All right. The Cowboys lost to the Packers this week. They no longer have a slot in Tier 1.
We're going to keep the Ravens at 7?
Yeah.
I'll agree with that. I think the Ravens at 7 is pretty. And the thing with the 49ers and Ravens is 49ers play the Cardinals in Mexico this week, and then the Ravens host the Panthers. So both of those teams should win those games. If one of them were to slip up, makes our job easier. We put one in front of the other. But I would imagine both teams do what they're supposed to do this week and get a win. I really still like the Ravens, and I think they're a sneaky team because everybody wants to talk about the Chiefs or the Bills or the Dolphins. Nobody wants to talk about the Ravens, and I think they're flying well under the radar right now.
You know what? Did you hear what Brandon Marshall said the other day about the Ravens?
No.
He was like, "This is probably the best Ravens team ever, ever." And he went through he went through position by position and comparing it to old teams. I was like, dude, he's kind of right, man. So, you know what? I think I've had a last minute change of heart.
All right. Let's go with it then.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's going to work its way out, but
they're right next to each other, in neck and neck. So we'll see what
they've pretty much been, and they've pretty much been right next to each other all year. I feel like whenever we do the power rankings, it seems like 49ers and Ravens are side by side, week in and week out.
Yeah, two teams, that have solid chances at the Super Bowl this year. So, all right, Cowboys no longer have a claim to Tier 1 because they lost to the Packers this week. So what team are we seeing making their way up into Tier 1? And personally, because of the Seahawks loss, I think I'm putting the Bengals up in the last spot in Tier 1.
I have between two teams. You're probably not going to like one of them, so I'm going to go ahead and say that one first, and that's the Giants. I think the Giants have a great case to be in that Tier 1. The game was never in jeopardy against the Texans. I know it was the Texans, but they did what they had to do, and they got the win. But the team that I'm probably going to vouch for the most going into Tier 1 is the Tennessee Titans. Lost a close game against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football in overtime. Come back, and you beat the Broncos. I know the Broncos aren't great, but the Broncos were coming off a bye. You want to know something about the Broncos? You know, if the Broncos had scored 18 points in every game this year, they'd be 8-1. 18 points. That's not a crazy amount of points. Instead, they're 3-6.
That's because their defense, dude.
That's how
That's
how freaking bad they've been on the offensive side. And to showcase, they had one huge play that was a busted coverage that got them their one touchdown. Other than that, nothing. You're coming off a bye week, and that's what you're putting out there on the field is that dog shit of a performance. We can get into the Broncos a little bit more, but I was just completely dumbfounded by them. But I like the Titans. I really do. I think that every single year we doubt this team, and every single year this team does exactly what they're doing this year. Mike Vrabel is such a fucking good coach. I love this guy, and I've completely turned a 180 on this team because at the beginning of the year I was like, this is a team that's going to finish third in their division behind the Colts and the Jags. This is a team that's not really going anywhere. We're probably going to see Malik Willis like week 13, 14, replacing Tannehill. And they just continue to perform every single week. So that's why I have them ahead of the Bengals. I know the Bengals were on a bye, so it does kind of take away from them. And I know that I've always been a proponent of, if they're on a bye, they shouldn't be moved down. I wouldn't necessarily say we're moving the Bengals down. We're debating on what team are moving up. And unfortunately, I have to go for what I saw this week, and that was the Titans.
I'm with that. Jaden was a hater on the Titans last week. He didn't want to give them credit for playing the Chiefs so close up until overtime in Arrowhead, which is fucking awesome. And then they take care of business this week. I have the Titans right behind the Bengals. The Bengals were on bye this week, so I'm cool with the Titans in Tier 1. They're 6-3, man.
Yeah, and like I said, what they have with Derrick Henry, that travels anywhere. We're talking about the Dolphins going to these colder environments to play playoff games. The Titans can go to these colder environments and play playoff games because they can just hand the damn ball off to Derrick Henry and let him do what he needs to do. He didn't even have a touchdown this week, and they still put up 17 points and won the game. So that is impressive to me what they've been able to do with the lack of receivers, with some injuries on the defensive side. I think was it Bud Dupree that got hurt, and he's been pretty much hampered all year.
Was it Harold Landry?
It was Harold Landry.
Yeah.
It was Harold. I always get them mixed up, but it was Harold Landry because Bud Dupree's still playing. You're right. But yeah, I think if I were to match up Titans and Bengals right now, I'd probably take the Titans. It would be a coin flip game, but I would think I would lean toward the Titans in that game. especially with Jamar Chase out right now. Now, once Jamar Chase gets back, it might affect the Bengals rankings, but with Jamar Chase being out, and also they said he's still on crutches, and there's no timetable for him to return. So Zach Taylor still wants to say, oh, it's week to week and we might have him back next week. I'm like, dude, if the guy's on crutches, how do you expect him to be ready to go in a week and a half? I don't see it. But, crazier things have happened. But until they get Chase back, I think I like the Titans right now.
Yeah, I can get with it. I mean, they keep teams low scoring with Derrick Henry. I mean, they dominate time of possession, so they don't have to, as long as they get the ball first. I mean, they should be able to win most of those games if they can control the time of possession with Derrick Henry and who is there better to do it with. So, yeah, I'm with the Titans rounding out tier 1. I cannot get with the Giants being that next team in there.
Really?
Yeah, dude. I mean, they are 7-2, so it looks great on paper, but okay, they take care of business against the Texans. They had a bye last week, but before that, they lost to the Seahawks 27-13. Seahawks team that just lost to the Bucks, and that was really their only super solid test this year outside of the Ravens. Did beat the Ravens at home, but got to remember they played the Jags super close in Jacksonville. It ended up being 23-17, but that game came down to the wire. They beat the Packers by 5. They lost to the Cowboys with Cooper Rush.
I'm okay with the Bengals being ahead of them, but I would say the Giants would be that second team in tier 2.
I had them lower originally, but as I'm looking at it, it's not too unimpressive. It's that recency from the Seahawks loss. I kind of just want to put them down, but they are still 7-2. So let's go Bengals, Giants, and then what team do we have?
I think I have the Jets. The last time we saw the Jets, they beat the Bills. I mean, I know they were on a bye this week, but I was not very impressed with what the Cowboys did. And I know the Seahawks lost to the Bucks, but I do like the Jets. I know it's crazy to have both New York teams back to back. But I'm still buying this Jets team. And you know why I'm really buying them is because of that defense, man. That defense is absolutely incredible. I said it was the best defense in football, and I still stand by that. If Zach Wilson doesn't make the boneheaded mistakes, this team can compete with any team in football because they can run the ball even without Breece Hall, and they can play really good defense. And talking about teams, when it comes to the weather and when it comes to the colder environments, running the ball and playing defense travels. Those are the two things that they do exceptionally well. So that's why I think, I'm still going to go with the Jets there. They got a big game against the Patriots this week, and that'll be a good litmus test for them. But for right now, I got to go. I think that they're ahead of both the Cowboys and Seahawks.
No questions from me here on that. I got the same thing. This Jets team is rolling right now. You can't doubt what they put on paper so far this year. They're coming off a bye. They're going to be well rested going into next week. And what we saw from the last time they played, they beat the fucking Bills. And MCJ looks to be just as effective as Breece Hall. Maybe not as effective, but he seems to be a suitable replacement. And also you got a guy who you just traded for, James Robinson, who's a hell of a football player too. So I've really got no concerns right now with this Jets team. Zach Wilson, it really depends on him and how well he can do going forward. But I've got the same thing, man. I got the Jets following up the Giants and the Bengals. But good shit.
And I always like to talk about Kevin O'Connell and the job that he's done and how he should probably be right there with Coach of the Year. Robert Saleh, man. This is one of the best coaching hires that we've seen in the last 3 to 4 years. And it's showcasing, we knew he was a defensive-minded coach coming from San Fran. But what he's been able to do with this defense is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, to hold the Bills to what was it, 17 points? Once again, they didn't score a touchdown in the second half of that game as well, which I know it seems like it's the norm anymore with the Bills. But yeah, like I said, good litmus test this week going to New England. New England already beat them once. Can they get that revenge game on the Patriots? It'll be a big question mark. But if they're able to win that game, in my opinion, they're in tier 1 after this.
Okay, let's go. All right, man. So, in tier 2 so far, we got Bengals, Giants, Jets, and then I've got the Seahawks coming up. Or no, I've got the Cowboys and then the Seahawks.
I do too. It's exactly what I've got. I've got the Cowboys ahead of Seahawks. I just think they're a better team. And Cowboys have a huge game at Minnesota this week. the Cowboys can go into Minnesota and they beat the Vikings, I would probably put the Cowboys back into tier 1 as well. And then everything's going to be so convoluted between the top 14 to 15 teams, because you're going to have teams beating other teams that are right there in that top 15, top 16, in our top 2 tiers, I guess you can say. But yeah, I think Cowboys were up 28-14 in that game. And you can look at whether it was the blown cover or the pass plays from Rodgers to Christian Watson that got him back into it. You can go back to the 4th down call or the non-pass interference call on 3rd down, whatever it might be. You can't blow a 28-14 lead. You just can't do that. There was a lot of play calling down the stretch that I was just like, what are you doing? Like, why is this the play call that you're going with down the stretch? Go with the simple plays. Go with, the button hook to the tight end, or a screen pass to Tony Pollard, or just run the damn ball. I mean, you've got a good offensive line that prides himself on the run. Dak had 2 questionable interceptions to, how was it, Ford? I think that was the guy's name. He had 2 picks in that game. I was like, where the hell did this come from? But yeah, I still think the Cowboys are one of the best teams in the NFC. But what they did this week, I got to knock them down a good amount, just because that was a struggling Packers team.
Mm-hmm.
And you gave the Green Bay Packers a heartbeat. You gave them a pulse. And I said it in our group text, Green Bay Packers are going to make the playoffs. And that is what you cannot do to a guy like Aaron Rodgers, is give him any little bit of confidence. And sure enough, they did it. And if the Packers end up making the playoffs, like I say they are, I'm going to look back at this game and be like, yep, that was 100% the turning point on their season. So I got to knock the Cowboys down a little bit, but I still think they're one of the best teams in football.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Aaron Rodgers after the game. He was like, we're not dead. And that was this version of relax from a few years ago. And I think we could run the table a few years ago. Like, man, this is the classic Aaron Rodgers is back kind of thing. It's an announcement that he's back. And also, I mean, the Cowboys did put 28 points up in that game. So it's not like their offense is sputtering. And also, they go into Lambeau. Like, that's a tough place to play. It's not easy to get wins there. And it's fucking Aaron Rodgers, man. Like, come on. Yeah. Also, bunch of young receivers. Like, they're just now they're finally starting to catch their groove. Maybe especially with their 2nd round receiver, Christian Watson out of North Dakota.
North Dakota City.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it'll be once they get a guy like Romeo Doubs back, it'll be interesting, because you had Romeo Doubs kind of come on the scene and then he got hurt. Now you've seen Christian Watson come on the scene. If he's come on the scene, I know Lazard has still been there as well. But if you have that 3-headed monster of those 3, you might have something to work with here if you're Green Bay.
Yeah, for sure. And also the Cowboys didn't have Zeke this week. So getting Zeke back, having that tandem, that'll be good for them. So, all right. Seahawks following them up. Not really anything to debate there. They did take a nasty loss to the Bucks in Germany, but I think the Bucks are just kind of sort of coming back. I can't take that much from that game.
They are.
So
they are. It was a game in Germany. It was kind of scripted for Tom Brady to win that game, to be the first quarterback ever to win 4 games in 4 different countries. I don't take too much away from the Seahawks. I still think they're a very good team, but I do think Geno Smith is a little bit more limited than we might have thought, in his passing ability. So I do worry about them moving forward, because now that they've got this loss, it opens the door for San Fran, because they play each other again. And if San Fran beats them, San Fran will then have beat them twice and will have the nod ahead of them when it comes to the standings moving forward in the NFC West. So I still think San Fran wins this division. And I think really and truly it's going to be down to the Seahawks, Giants, and Packers. 2 of those 3 teams, and the Commanders. 2 of those 4 teams are going to make the playoffs, and the other 2 are going to miss it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the wild thing about having all these extra wild card spots now. So many teams can make it in, so be interesting to watch. But yeah, so in Tier 2, we ended off with Bengals, Giants, Jets, Cowboys, Seahawks, and then following that up, we just mentioned it. I think the Bucks are back, dude.
I got the Bucks there as well. Wow, man, we are on the same wavelength tonight. Look at that. Yeah. If you think about it, this is the exact reason why Tom Brady came to the NFC. Think about this. Let's think about this for a minute. Bucks win their division. They get a home game against Daniel Jones or Geno Smith or Maybe Taylor Heineke, rematch from last year's playoff game. Not the most formidable from the quarterback play, at least. Let's say they win that game. Then they're going to have to go to say they're the 4 seed. They're probably going to have to go to Philly or to Minnesota, and you're facing Jalen Hurts or Kirk Cousins. Not the most proven quarterbacks in this league. Let's say they were to win that game. Probably going to play maybe San Fran. Jimmy Garoppolo, not the most formidable quarterback. Maybe they play the Cowboys. Dak Prescott. Has Dak Prescott really proven in the playoffs? The answer is probably no. All of these quarterbacks in the NFC have not done it in the playoffs, and we always talk about the Tom Brady effect. And if you're facing against Tom Brady and you're in the playoffs, a lot of times these quarterbacks end up choking under pressure.
All he has to do is make
and
it
it's
there.
not necessarily what Tom Brady does, but it might be more so what the other quarterback doesn't do or how bad they do. So it's crazy to think about, but it just seems like the Bucs, like you said, have found their rhythm. They've gotten healthy now. I'm telling you this right now. Rachaad White is a much better running back than Leonard Fournette, and I would not be surprised if he starts to take a lot more carries from Uncle Lenny.
I think you just hit the nail on the head because announcement came out today that Rachaad White's the starter going forward this season. So,
yeah.
I mean, he looks so much more effective, and that's been the thing that we've been crying out for these past couple of weeks with the Bucs. Like, that run game is non-existent, stagnant with Leonard Fournette. And now that they got the rookie in there, Rachaad White, I like it in Tampa Bay. This is a team that we had ranked super high in the preseason, so we were just waiting for them to bounce back, to bump them back up towards the top, and I think it's finally time for that. You look at their recent games. They beat the Seahawks on Sunday. They beat the Rams the week before that. And then the week before that, they played a close game against the Ravens. They did lose that game, but they only lost by 5. Did have some garbage time there to cover the spread. But, I do like the Bucs there, man. They're back. I'm with it. So
yeah, and I think the big thing for them is their defense. Crazy stat going into this game is that Geno Smith was 4-0 against the spread all time against Tom Brady, which is crazy to think about. There was like a 1-point loss when he was with the Jets and then a 2-point loss when he was with the Jets. But he had always covered the spread against Tom Brady. This was the first time that Brady had covered the spread against him. I heard this on Part of My Take. Tom Brady passed Blake Bortles for the most yards in international games. He now has 1,210 to Blake Bortles 1,209. Another crazy stat. The Bucs have scored 21 points or less in all 5 of their wins this year.
Damn.
So it shows that when their defense is playing to the capability that their defense is known to be playing for, or playing as, they end up getting the wins. Devin White had a strip sack in this game and I believe a fumble recovery on the strip sack. He found out his dad died 2 hours before he was supposed to fly from the U.S. to Germany, and then went out and did that. I thought that was a really cool thing that I did want to make note of. But yeah, I think this Bucs team is back, and I think they're to be feared. The rest of their season schedule is not the most difficult. I know they've got a couple of games, like for instance, I know they play at San Fran, but they've got the rest of their division each one more time, which has turned into one of the worst divisions in football in regards to the Falcons, Panthers, and the Saints. But they've got, they got a bye this week. Then they've got at the Browns, the Saints, at the 49ers, the Bengals, and then they finish at Arizona, home against the Panthers, at the Falcons. So the Bengals, they play in Tampa, and they have to go to San Fran. But other than that, the Browns, Saints, Cardinals, Panthers, Falcons, they're going to be favored in all of those games, and I would expect them to probably win those games. So they go 5-2 down the stretch. They end up 10-7. Maybe they win one of those games between Cincinnati or San Fran. They end up 11-6, and I don't think any of us thought that was possible 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Absolute turn. And I mean, we mentioned this, a team that we had so high in the preseason, just been waiting for them to bounce back. So now that the Bucs are back, they sneak their way into tier 2. But let's round this out, man. I do have the Chargers following up the Bucs.
I have the Patriots.
Okay.
Chargers, I have a lot of question marks about. I know the Patriots are on bye this week, but I just worry about the Chargers, and everybody keeps saying, "Oh, well, once Keenan Allen comes back, they'll be a different team." Is he ever going to come back this year? I really that is a legitimate question. Is if
Mike
he's ever
Williams
going
will
to come
come
back this
back.
year? Mike Williams is, I think, listed as questionable this week, so it looks like he's going to finally come back from injury. But I do worry about that because if you don't have those guys, Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter, those guys are not getting it done. And the defense it's been better in the last week or so, but I'm still not sold on their defense. I think this is a team that is just, unfortunately, the injury bug has just hit them. And I just really worry about them. And their line is not great. Losing Slater was such a big injury to them. So I really worry about them. Right now, if you were to match up the Patriots and Chargers, I would be taking the Patriots over them.
Yeah, if you put it that way, I mean, right now, yeah, I'll probably take the Patriots. But I mean, we've been talking about this for so long. You're right. Like Keenan might just not come back, like at all. Like we saw Mike Thomas with the toe.
Austin Eckler,
like he's not coming back this year.
Yeah.
So.
And if Austin Eckler doesn't have a game where he's scoring 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, I don't know where the offense comes from on this team. I know Justin Herbert is great, but if he's throwing to, I think Mitch mentioned it, high school receivers, I really worry about this Chargers offense and the limited what they have, from a limited standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I can probably get with putting the Chargers in the last slot in tier 2, but I've got the commies.
You don't want to put your. I was gonna say I kind of had I had it as Bucks, Patriots, Commanders, and then unfortunately the Chargers dropping down to tier 3. I think what the Commanders have done over the past couple of weeks and beating what we had as the number 1 team, best team in football. I absolutely, I had them. If you wanted to, the thing is, I don't think that I can have the Chargers in tier 2.
Okay.
Like I think the Patriots and Commanders are both there. If you want to flip flop Patriots and Commanders, I'm okay with that. But I do think that I can't look at the Chargers ahead of both of those teams right now.
Yeah, okay. I can get with that. But definitely the commies in front of the Patriots. We just beat the best team in football at the link. And if you break down this team by position, dude, like Terry Taylor connection, holy fuck, dude. Like I said it was matchup proof. It's matchup proof. Like, it's pretty much matchup proof.
It is.
Like, we went up against Darius Slay and James Bradbury. Terry didn't get jack shit in the last time that we played the Eagles when we had Carson Wentz at the helm. But with Taylor at the helm, he finds some kind of way to find Terry in open space. And again, it's matchup proof, dude. And Curtis Samuel, he had a nice game. I mean, not as good as some of the games that we've seen previously, but definitely still a weapon. Jahan Dotson, he's back, who scored a touchdown in every one of his games early. I mentioned it earlier. This is turning into one of the best running back committees in football. Like, I thought that Brian Robinson was going to come in and be the guy because Gibby was just dog shit terrible for that. And Brian Robinson obviously gets shot, and obviously gets shot. That doesn't happen every day. But yeah, he gets shot and he doesn't look as good as he did in the preseason and in college. Like, he really just he's angry. Like, he looks like he's just kind of like rubbing, like moving forward angrily, like very slowly, and just bounces between tackles.
He was stopped on the 1 touchdown run at like the 1 yard line, and he carried 2 to 3 guys into the end zone. I was like, this is a guy that just got shot in the leg, and he just carried these guys, and absolutely ridiculous. And then you got Michael Thomas, who can't play because of a toe.
Yeah,
so
for sure. But when you think about it, like, we don't need Brian Robinson to be that guy who gets into open space and gets yardage. That's Gibby, man. Like, Gibby looks pissed that everybody flamed him on Twitter about being the punt returner and the kick returner now. I don't think he went from being the superstar on this team to being the bottom rung on the ladder. And I think that really pissed him off. I think that's lit a fire under him. So I think Gibby's back, and we can have that 1-2 punch with Brian Robinson being our power goal line guy and Gibby getting the ball in open space. I love it, dude. I really think this team looks awesome going forward. We have Chase Young. He was supposed to be coming back this game. Didn't come back. We still look absolutely fine. I mentioned trading Chase Young, but if we end up bringing him back on the line, that's not too bad either, because this defensive line is playing like one of the best lines in football right now. And something that not a lot of people want to talk about, Cam Curl, the best ranked wide receiver, or best ranked safety according to PFF. So he's having a fucking fantastic season, best safety in football. And our corners, man, Kendall Fuller, he's always been a dog. He's one of our captains. He's a Pro Bowl caliber player. And then we have St. Juice, who played a fucking awesome game on Monday and has had really good games leading up to that. So I think St. Juice and Kendall Fuller, that 1-2 combo at the corner position. Then we got Cam Curl at the safety position, and our linebacker is starting to play better too. I mean, Jamin obviously had the fucking face mask call, but he looked pretty good in that game. And Cole Holcomb kind of leads the linebacker core, not in terms of talent, but as a captain. So I'm done gushing about my team. But if you wanted some reasons why they're fucking good right now, that's why. And that's why I got them ahead of the Patriots, and then the Patriots to round out tier 2. So.
Yeah, the only thing I will say about the Commanders is, isn't this the week where the Attorney General is supposed to like come out and say something, and maybe this win is a little bit of distraction away from what is going on behind the scenes of the organization?
I mean, I think this team wants to separate itself from any, like, as much of the wrongdoing of Dan Snyder. I mean, we're about to get new owners anyway. This team's probably going to be more with the new owners than they have ever been with Dan Snyder. So I think they're trying to separate themselves from that. I think it just pisses them off more. And, like, we're looked at as a trash, dishonorable organization. So it pisses people off, you know? So left hand up. Who are we? We're the fucking Commanders. That's it. So, okay.
All right, as we look into these last tiers, let's try and roll through these, because in my opinion, there's one or two teams that you might consider a contender, but other than that, all of these other teams, their season is pretty much done, and they're looking at draft picks, they're looking at rebuilds, and I don't think we don't have to dive into too much about a lot of these teams.
I totally agree with you, man. So let's run through it. Okay, the Chargers leading off tier 3 because I had them at the end of tier 2. Following them up, I've got the Browns, dude. Another week closer to Deshaun Watson. They did just get their shit rocked by the Dolphins, but the Dolphins are a good team, our 4th best team in football, according to us. And 2 weeks ago before the bye, the Browns did look really good. So,
and this is where it gets interesting.
There's an argument for anybody.
Because I've got the Green Bay Packers jumping all the way up after what they did to the Cowboys. And like I said, I think this team has got themselves right back on track to where they need to be to make a postseason run. And it hurts me to say it because this guy has just haunted my dreams for the last decade plus. But Aaron Rodgers is doing what he needs to do. So I actually have the Packers ahead of the Browns. And I would take the Packers over the Browns, the Falcons, the Bears, the Broncos, the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Saints right now.
Okay, but they did beat the Cowboys, which is nice, but do we really want to jack them up a whole, 10 spots for winning a home game after being terrible before that?
But what did the other teams ahead of them do? Like, the Browns lost pretty badly. The Falcons lost by 10 to the Panthers. The Bears lost to the Lions. The Broncos lost to the Titans. The Cardinals, they beat the Rams, so maybe the Cardinals is somebody that we might want to move up. But the Rams lost to the Cardinals. The Saints lost to the Steelers. Like, everybody in front of them lost this week.
Okay. All right. When you put it like that, I'm with the Packers. Because, I mean, out of all these other teams also, I mean, in honor of Jaden not being here, we got to do some paper watching on our own. And if you're paper watching, the Green Bay Packers should be up on that list. So, yeah, I'm cool with putting them right behind the Chargers. Can we put the Browns right behind them, though?
Yeah, I can get behind that. I think there's still some question marks there, but I would take the Browns, like you said, with Jacoby Brissett coming back. I mean, Deshaun Watson coming back in a couple weeks. I think that definitely elevates them a little bit. I would put them or the Cardinals right behind them, just because the Cardinals were able to, I know both teams had a backup quarterback, but Cardinals were able to come out victorious against the Rams, which Cliff Kingsbury has never done. I mean, he's done it once, but really and truly, Sean McVay kicks Cliff Kingsbury's ass every single time they play each other. But yeah, I think that the Browns ahead of the Cardinals, I think that's fine. I would take the Browns over the Cardinals right now anyways.
Yeah, I would be willing to put the Cardinals ahead of the Browns, but you got to remember, this was Colt McCoy versus John Wofford. Come on. This was right. Barely applicable. One thing that I can say, James Conner's season's back. got rid
Yeah.
of Benjamin. So let's go all in on James Conner for rest of season fantasy.
Yeah, crazy to think about too, because Benjamin, like a couple weeks ago, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago against Seattle, had like 30-something point or 25-some fantasy points, and now he's cut. So it's just crazy how that works in the NFL, where 1 second you're on top, especially at the running back position. One week you're on top of the world, and the next a couple weeks later you're not even on a team. And I know the Texans signed him, so maybe they incorporate him into the running game. I don't think he overtakes Dameon Pierce, but maybe he was it usurp? I guess that's the word.
Yeah.
I can't think of the correct word there. But anyway, takes over maybe
Succeed.
from Rex Burkhead.
Yeah. That should tell you something about the releasing of Benjamin, because they picked him up off waivers. The Texans did, and they were the first available team in the waiver slot. So they didn't even need Benjamin, but they were like, why the fuck is this guy on the waiver wire? We're going to go pick him up. So I haven't actually seen a guy been claimed off of waivers in a while, so that's why I thought it was interesting. And also the Texans being the nearest team in the waiver order told me that every team wanted him, and the Texans just ended up getting him. So.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of it like that, but yeah, that shows you if the team with the number 1 waiver picked him up, then he was obviously a sought-after commodity.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, Cardinals are a Hard Knocks team. I fall in love with these Hard Knocks teams, so I'll put them right behind Cleveland though, at everybody else. You mentioned it. The rest of this fucking goddamn stinks. I
would probably put the Steelers up there, man.
Ooh.
I really would. Out of all the teams, in my opinion, they had the most impressive victory. I know the Lions beat the Bears, but it was by 1, basically off a botch.
I think that just tells us how bad the Saints are.
Yeah, but also, this is a Steelers team that did get wins, against Tampa Bay, and them getting TJ Watt back just completely changes this team. They're now 53, 24, and 3 with TJ Watt playing in an entire game. 53, 24, and 3. That is absolutely insane. So I think the reemergence of him completely changes this team and puts him at least into tier 3. And in my opinion, what do the other teams ahead of them really do this week?
Okay, I originally had the Broncos and the Falcons ahead, but as we're talking about it, I can't get with that. A team that I can't get with being ahead of them, though, and this is probably the biggest jump of the week. The Colts, dude. New head coach, Jeff Saturday. He looks like he's got that team humming, dude. It's fucking hilarious, because it's like, these head coaches want to overcomplicate things so much, but to put in a former player who has no coaching experience, or say, I don't want to claim that he was right yet, but he seems to be onto something with saying that he's not scared, like he's not scared of he's not going to listen to all these fucking analytics and other outside sources. Like, he knows what it takes to win a football game. He's going to run like very simple plays, very classic football plays that win football games, and that's exactly what he did against the Texans. And, dude, this, Colts team isn't as bad as we want to think they are. Like, now with Matt Ryan back as their starting quarterback going forward, they're 4.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor looks like he's absolutely back.
Jonathan Taylor's back.
Mm-hmm. And, dude,
yeah,
go ahead.
I can get behind the Colts. Also, they're going to play each other in 2 weeks, the Monday after Thanksgiving. Steelers at Colts. So that'll give us much more of a determination on where these two teams are. But I would put them side by side. I can agree with that. If you want to put the Colts ahead of the Steelers, I think I'm okay with that. It's like I said on our Instagram Live right before the game started on Sunday. With Jeff Saturday coming in, is this going to create a new path for coaches in the NFL, where we're going to see coaches that have no experience at the collegiate or the NFL level come in and do really well? It remains to be seen. It is only 1 game, but what I saw from him, the players buy in, and that's what you need. Is you got to have a guy that can overtake a locker room and have the players buying in.
Yeah, I was thinking about the other day, there's no other guy that you would buy into more than a former All-Pro center of Peyton Manning. You're gonna. Because new head coaching hires, it's always a question of whether or not they're going to be respected in the room. Jeff Saturday, right. There's no fucking question of that. Every dude is on with his message. So, now this team's ready to rock. You mentioned fucking Jonathan Taylor. I didn't even realize, dude. 22 carries, 147 yards and a tud. He's back, dude. Like, let's fucking go. Matt Ryan, he's back at quarterback, which is the sound move to make.
Had like 40 yards
Yeah,
rushing.
dude, I know. Like, I was literally watching it in the basement at our fraternity house. We have a bunch of Colts fans because we're pretty close to Indy, and everybody was like, "Who the fuck is that guy?" But yeah, it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch the Colts get their first dub with Jeff Saturday. But yeah, I'm willing to put them up. Let's do it. Okay, so
Yeah, the other thing I heard from Jeff Saturday is when he got hired as a coach, he had to text Eric Decker to take over his fantasy football team because he couldn't have a fantasy football team as a head coach.
I thought that was hilarious too, and it got me thinking, like, who else is all in that league? Like, it must be fucking crazy. Like, all former fantasy superstars are in that league. Like, Jeff Saturday. If it starts with Jeff Saturday and Eric Decker, like, I can't imagine what the rest of the fucking league looks like. But that was cool shit. All right.
Are we bumping the Lions up? They just won back-to-back games against the Packers and the Bears. I would probably still put the Bears ahead of them, as weird as that is to say, because we have to go off.
They've
what
lost
has
so
happened most
many
recently,
close
but
games. Like, the Bears just keep losing close games, and putting together power rankings, we have to take that into consideration. So,
yeah, for sure. I will say this about the Bears. Fantasy points the last 4 weeks. Justin Fields has 131.5. Tua is second at 92.6. Listen to this. Davis Mills is 54th at 53.7. If you take the margin between Tua and Davis Mills, which is second to 54th, and you take the margin from Justin Fields to Tua, which is 1-2, it's the same differential. That shows how ridiculous Justin Fields has been over the last 4 weeks. He's the first quarterback with 2 60-plus rushing touchdowns in a season, and he's done it in a matter of a couple of weeks. Fields has more rushing touchdowns than the Packers, the Bucks, the Broncos, the Commanders, that was going into Monday night, the Colts, and the Texans. It is also the 5th straight game the Bears have rushed for over 200 yards, which is the first time a team has done that since the Steelers in 1976. Justin Fields is turning into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and is he the best quarterback from that class?
Easily. It's not a question. I mean, you think about it, you've got Trevor Lawrence would be the next guy, but I'm taking Fields over Trevor Lawrence right now. Davis Mills, Justin Fields. Mac Jones, Justin Fields. Trey Lance, Justin Fields. Like, it's not even close. I think you're taking
Zach Wilson is the other one.
I think you're taking Justin Fields within the top 3 picks if you're drafting again today.
Yeah, I mean, what he's it is incredible. Not only what a new coach can do, which is funny enough. We all were saying it's Matt Nagy. That's the reason why this has been so fucking bad. And little did we know it was that bad. That this is what it's come to. But yeah, I would absolutely take him as the number 1 quarterback in this draft. And I think he's somebody that you've got to build your franchise around, because he is somebody that has got a lot of things that not a lot of quarterbacks have, from the running standpoint and what he can do when the play breaks down to either throw the ball or run the ball. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Now, I know he did have a pick 6. That's the first pick 6 by the Lions in 60 games.
Wow.
There's only 16, 17 games in a season. So if you're doing the math, 16 games in a season, that's almost 4 seasons since they've had a pick 6, which is crazy to think about. And he threw it to his college teammate, which is also wild. And he's number 1, and he threw it to number 1, Jeff Okudah. A lot of crazy things that happened on that pick 6, but I still like the Bears. Like I said, they're a missed extra point away from probably winning that game. So, I still put them ahead of the Lions. I still think there's a lot to build off if you're the Bears as well. Worry about the defense. They lost Robert Quinn, and they traded Roquan Smith as well. So the defense is completely decimated. But I still like the direction that this team's going.
Absolutely. And they've got a lot of young guys in the secondary. Kyler Gordon.
A lot of picks.
Yeah, Kyler Gordon. Jaquan Brisker's been playing really good this year. I like this Bears team a lot. I don't want to move them down past the Lions. But yeah, I'm cool with the Lions, following them up. DeAndre Swift, he's getting healthier every week. Jeff Okudah with the pick 6. Like, he seems like he's finally living up to that top 3 pick that he was a while back.
Their line is incredible too, with Decker and Panay Sewell and everybody else that they've got on that line. I mean, I think Frank Ragnow is still there. They've got a really good offensive line.
Mm-hmm. And DJ Chark does head to the IR, but somebody by the name of Jameson Williams happens to be coming back within the next couple weeks here. So, yeah, I'm with this Lions team and rounding out a tier 3 after back-to-back dubs. So, against two really good teams.
I agree with that.
Sweet. All right, let's round out this tier 4. Let's try to do it quick. I've got the
quick. I got a question about these tier 4 teams, because who, in your opinion, is the most surprising tier 4 team as far as the team that you did not expect to be here at the beginning of the season? It's either the Rams, the Broncos, or the Raiders, in my opinion. Maybe the Saints, but I would probably put those top.
I mean, if you're asking me who I'm most surprised is in tier 4, it's probably the Rams after coming off a fucking Super Bowl. But if you're asking me who the most surprising team is as far as how bad they've been, it's definitely the Raiders, dude.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Real quick thing about Josh McDaniels. I heard this on Part of My Take. He started 6-0 in his career. Then he got caught videotaping practices. He's 7-24 since.
Dude,
he's a one and done. I think him and Dennis Allen are both one and dones.
This is the thing. I saw this today. The Raiders don't have enough money to dish out another coach contract. So they gave all their money
because of what they paid Gruden.
So they don't have enough money to give out another coaching contract. So they're locked into McDaniels this year and next year at least, until they have some cash.
Is Derek Carr on this team next season?
It's all. I think it's up to Devontae Adams, dude. Like, did he come here expecting Derek Carr to be the quarterback during the duration of his contract or not?
I mean, I agree with that as well. I just don't think that their relationship has flourished like the way they thought it was. Also, Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow will play a combined 46 snaps this year together.
Fucking hell. Yeah, Hunter Renfrow.
That's just that. Those, you gave the contract to Renfrow, you gave the contract to Waller, and it's just blown up in your face. And you've got Josh Jacobs is probably going to be gone after this year because they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. So many question marks with this team. They've traded everything for this team to get it to be a competitive team, and it has just not worked out. They look awful. I agree with you. Out of those 3 teams, as far as the most surprising when it comes to how bad they've been, I'd probably say the Raiders as well. They look like absolute garbage. You want to know what's funny? Broncos play the Raiders this weekend.
Super Bowl. Jesus. Yeah, also, all of those first-round picks from the Mike Mayock era are gone, except Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. Yep. That would be Jonathan Abram, who they cut. He was the last one, right? Clellan Ferrell, Henry Ruggs, Damon Arnett, all those guys gone.
It's at Leatherwood. It's
Leatherwood.
Wild. Mike Mayock, worst GM hiring
so bad
in the history of sport, maybe.
It's up there, man. Him and Gruden just completely put this team into a black hole. Dude. See what I did there? For probably the next 5 to 6 years.
For sure. All right. Let's put these teams in order, shall we? Can we put the
Texans are the last.
Okay.
I would put the Panthers out of the last spot. I think that's they beat the Bucks.
I've got the Panthers better than the Raiders too, respectively.
The Panthers should have beat the Falcons twice. I know they beat them this past week, but they also should have beat them when they were in Atlanta as well. DJ Moore, that dumb penalty. I still am just like, that's so fucking stupid. Agreed. But yeah, I would agree with probably the Panthers ahead of the Raiders, which is so fucking crazy to think about.
I mean, we had the Colts at 30-31 last week, which is crazy to think about. You see them bouncing out, and if the Raiders have an impressive win this week, I mean, I don't know how impressive it can get beating the Broncos, but
yeah, but the Colts was a thing where it's like, oh, they just fired their head coach, so now they've at least got something new to build off of. Like, if the Raiders were to beat the Broncos this week, what do they really have to build off of? It's not like they're getting something new that's going to propel them up in the power rankings. They might just get a win because the Broncos are just that bad too. I think that's what it comes down to. And I know you can sit there and say, well, the Colts beat the Raiders and the Raiders are that bad. But like I said, it's not only did you get a new coach, you got your running back back. the complete dynamic of the entire team has changed in a matter of 1 week. So that is why I think we both agree that they're that much higher compared to where they are, because they're a completely different team.
Okay, this Rams team is so terrible. I've got the Broncos and the Falcons ahead of them, even though they both took losses this week. This Rams team,
with the injury to Cooper Kupp,
what else are you gonna do?
I would probably do that. I mean, I would probably go. Man, we're really bumping the Broncos up that much. I guess we have to. Where are the Jags in here too?
I've got the Jags right ahead of the Panthers, so right there. Just
do you want to know what team has the most first downs in the NFL?
What, the Jags?
The Jags.
Insane. Pretty
crazy thing about. You also know that the Jags lost by 10 to the Chiefs. Jags were 3-0 in turnover differential. It's also Trevor Lawrence's 5th game of 100-plus passer rating, and the record for the Jags is 7 in one season. Quietly having a pretty decent year.
Yeah. In fantasy especially. People don't want to grab or hold on to Trevor Lawrence in fantasy. I have him in like 3 or 4 leagues because he's quarterback. I'm pretty sure he's quarterback 9 or 10 so far this year. So.
Yeah, and when he gets the ball to Christian Kirk, their offense does well. And what do you know? Christian Kirk had a touchdown this week. So I think that's their recipe for moving forward. I'd probably put the Jags ahead of the Saints. I'm not sold on the Saints team, and as long as they keep starting Andy Dalton, I'm not going to be sold. What do you have to lose with Jameis? I do not understand why they do not start Jameis Winston. Like, if you're going to be bad, okay, be bad, but at least find out whether or not you can move forward with this quarterback. I mean, you probably can't, but who knows? You know you're not moving forward with Andy Dalton, so why are you still putting Andy Dalton out every week? And I think this, once again, comes down to the coaching staff, which is why I think Dennis Allen needs to go after this year. I do not understand. He was dressed. If he was hurt, why would you dress him as your backup quarterback? Nothing makes sense right now in New Orleans. And you want to talk about a team that has nothing to build off of? The Saints. Because you could be like, oh, well, maybe they'll just keep losing and build up for a pick. Oh, wait, that first-round pick is with Philly. So the more the Saints keep doing terrible, the better that pick looks for Philly for next year. So this Saints team is a complete disaster. All these teams are a disaster, let's be real. I kind of like it how we have it with Broncos, Rams, Falcons, Jags, Saints, Panthers, Raiders, Texans. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I originally had the Falcons ahead of the Rams, but I couldn't do it after losing to the Panthers this week. All of these teams are fucking dog shit, so it doesn't matter.
They are, and there's 3 teams in one division, the NFC South, that are in these rankings. There's 2 teams. There's between the South divisions, NFC and AFC. There's 5 out of the 8 teams. And there's 2 in the AFC West, too, which is crazy to think about.
God damn. It's easy wins in those divisions. But, yeah, I'm with this.
It is.
I'm with this how it looks.
All right, so I think we've got it finalized then. I think we figured out our power rankings for the week.
Fuck yeah, man. Spent a solid amount of time on it. But let's recap for our audio listeners out there. So, in Tier 1, going in order, we have the Chiefs, Eagles, Vikings, Dolphins, Bills, Ravens, 49ers, and Titans. And then going down into Tier 2, starting at number 9, we have the Bengals, Giants, Jets, Cowboys, Seahawks, Bucks, Commanders, and then the Patriots. Then we move down to Tier 3. We got the Chargers, Packers, Browns, Cardinals, Colts, Steelers, Bears, and Lions. And then the bottom of the bottom tier, the Broncos, Rams, Falcons, Jags, Saints, Panthers, Raiders, and Texans at 32. Solid week of power rankings, man. I feel good about that. We got some new teams in Tier 1. The Bills finally knocked off out of that top 3. KC finally makes it back to 1. The Eagles.
Titans jumping up to Tier 1. It's a big move, I think, on their part. And I also think, the Bucks could be right back up into Tier 1 after a week. We could be talking about the Packers into Tier 2. Maybe the Commanders might keep moving up too. And then the battle for New York, could we be looking at a Giants-Jets Super Bowl? I don't think so, but crazier things have happened.
What I'm saying, dude. All right, well, that does it for our Power Rankings episode this week. This will be out as we record this on Wednesday night. It'll be out tomorrow afternoon, and then we'll come out with a preview episode I don't know when, TBD. But yeah, solid shit on the power rankings. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.